What is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Adam Mason here. I'm so excited that you're coming and listening to this episode with Maddie Mae of Adventure Instead, Gabby and Brandon of The Foxes Photography, and Anni Graham. All, let's be real, badass photographers specializing in elopements, both in the U.S., all around the world, and when there's not COVID, of course, not global pandemics. But anyway, they're really, really cool. They're just launched a course in the last few days called the Leave No Trace Photography course. And I wanted to have them on, talk a little bit about it, because I'm passionate about the outdoors, but I live in a city. Like, how can I help? What can I do? So we got this podcast. I know there are tons of elopement photographers that listen to this podcast and are hungry for more elopement content. So we decided to bring all four of them here, the Avengers, if you will, and really, really cool. But before we get in the episode, I want to talk to you about something fun we've got going on next Tuesday night, and that is going to be our workshop in the Bearded Tog Facebook community, togfb.com. It's going to be on pricing, where to start, how to calculate your prices from a way that doesn't feel like you're just copying off of somebody else's homework. So I want to take you through my simple pricing method that's going to help you be sustainable in business, not just have you be a flash in the pan and be like, oh, I'm out of money. So I would love to take you through my pricing workflow. It's all free. Just come join the Facebook group, togfb.com, ask questions, hang out, meet other like-minded photographers. It's going to be really, really cool. togfb.com. Would love to have you guys there. We do workshops in there every month, from SEO to finding your why to gaining more leads to increasing your bookings. So it's pretty stacked, but I'm also biased. So you should definitely go listen to that. But without any further ado, here are the Leave No Trace Photographer course creators: Maddie Mae of Adventure Instead, Gabby and Brandon of The Foxes Photography, and Anni Graham. Here we go. Awesome. Well, I think this is the biggest crowd we've had on the podcast before. We got like 17 people here. So I'm going to say, see if I get the names right. Gabby, Brandon, The Foxes Photography, Maddie Mae, of course, like longtime Bearded Tog gangster. And then new as well, Anni Graham. So welcome to the podcast, guys. I'm excited to have you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Adam.
Yeah, I'm just building my small collection of elopement photographers, like little trolls or voodoo dolls. I just have all of you, so that's weird, but
that's what we are, just little gnomes hiding in the woods.
exactly. I could see that, like the red beanie, kind of deal. So it's not too far-fetched for you guys, I feel like. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys for doing this so much. This is going to be really fun and really chill. We're going to talk about your new course that you guys just launched as a team in partnership with Leave No Trace Center, which I think is really, really cool. But before that, since it's three of your guys' first time on the podcast, and for Maddie, it's been a while, tell me a little bit about you guys, your background, just in general, what you do. I feel like we lack a lot of the elopement photographer vibes on this podcast, and Maddie's been carrying that weight by herself for a while. So feel free, tell us about you guys. Gabby and Brandon, you want to start off?
Yeah. So we're the Foxes. Yes, that's our real last name.
Fox.
Yes. So we photograph adventure elopements kind of all over the country. Right now we're kind of specializing in the PNW. So hiking elopements, climbing elopements, kind of anything where our couple wants to go outside and spend a day getting after it on their wedding. And
yeah, we've been doing that pretty full time for about 3 years now. So yeah, loving it.
Yep.
That's awesome. Anni, what about you? Welcome to the Bearded Tog.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm also a full-time elopement photographer, and everything's now based out of Bend, Oregon. But I work like pretty internationally. I do shoot probably like 50% local, 50% international. And that's like my background. I didn't grow up in the US. I grew up in India. So it's kind of like my biggest passion in elopement photography is not so much like I want to go climbing, but I kind of want to travel somewhere else and do a new country together. So that's kind of like my specialty in the elopement photography world.
That's awesome. And then Maddie, what about you?
Great. Yeah, I'm based out of Colorado, born and raised Coloradan. So love photographing a lot of elopements here in the Rockies. And I also do quite a few, or did until 2020, photograph a lot of international elopements as well.
I think most of everything I was supposed to be shooting this year was supposed to be international, but I ended up shooting 100% of them in Colorado. So that ended up getting switching up, which I'm not bummed about. It's a beautiful state. It's been great to like spend more time at home and just enjoying what's in my what's right in my backyard. I have a team of elopement photographers with Adventure Instead. So Amber, my other photographer, she lives in Estes Park, Colorado, photographs a lot right in Rocky Mountain National Park. And Tori also lives in Bend, Oregon, and she photographs a lot in Washington, Oregon, California. She's kind of our our little person repping the West Coast for elopements for us. And between the three of us, we photograph about 100, 120 elopements a year. That's kind of our capacity as a team. And kind of all over Colorado, West Coast, and when travel is a thing again, internationally as well. So
I love it. That's awesome. So, you guys have just launched this course as we're talking about this. When this podcast comes out, it'll be about a few days after the official launch, this Leave No Trace course for photographers, elopement photographers who specialize in utilizing, enjoying, embracing outdoor public lands, at least in the US, and then I imagine around the globe as well. The principles still apply. So super cool. I want to know, when Maddie originally approached me, she was like, hey, we're doing this thing, Leave No Trace. Immediately I was drawn to it because, at least for me, my personal kind of attachment was, I was a Boy Scout here in the US and went camping every month for about 10 years. And, the Scoutmaster is always like, hey, leave it better than you found it, and it sounds really awful when you're telling somebody to join, because you'd be like, yeah, we go camping. And the first thing we do when we arrive after we set up our tents is we pick up all the trash. Like when you arrive, and you're like, what? We have to start with like doing somebody else's job, but obviously that principle is still there for me. And so I was used to that language, but at the same time I was like, oh, there's like an official center. This isn't just like some abstract, saying that people say, or, people who love the outdoors say it. So I was all about this, very pumped for it. So and I'll just whenever I ask a question, we'll let any of you guys answer it, because I think it'll be fun just to let you guys do your thing. But talk to me a little bit about like, what is Leave No Trace, and then tell me a little bit about the course.
So Leave No Trace is very technically is a set of these 7 principles they're not meant to necessarily be like black and white rules, like right and wrong. They're a set of ethics. So they're very adaptable in different situations, which is kind of like the biggest thing that I try to emphasize in the course too, is having them be a set of ethics. And the point of all of it is to conserve the access to our public lands. So it's not like like Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics is like the name of the organization that we partnered with to do this. And it's not like a conservation organization. Like it's like the national park system is what's conserving land. What Leave No Trace is conserving access to the land. And I think that perspective is really important, and something that kind of gets like really mixed up and confused in the whole process of explaining Leave No Trace. So what it is a set of ethics that is basically something that you can use as like a guide or a toolbox of how we can continue to access our public lands without destroying them, because the impact that we have on the land is just so much greater than its capacity to like recover from it. Because there's so many people that are going outside now. There's so many people that are accessing our national parks and state parks. Like if you look at the numbers and graphs of like the increase of visitors to all of the national parks in the US is like, I mean, the line just goes straight up. It's like pretty crazy, actually. And I think that would be the exact same graph for people who are also shooting in the outdoors for elopement photography, which wasn't really even a thing like 5 years ago. And it's relevant to really anybody. So like wedding photographers who might be just shooting engagement pictures or anniversary pictures or vow renewals or whatever it is. Like it's pretty much relevant to anybody who's working in our public lands and in any other place in the whole world as well. So yeah, it's a set of principles that is conserving our access to our public lands.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Annie, because I think a lot of photographers have a misconception that Leave No Trace is about keeping us from enjoying and keeping us out of national parks, and I know that there are definitely people out there and photographers who have used Leave No Trace as kind of a way to like gatekeep or police or shame or make people feel bad about, things that they didn't know better when they were engaging in in the outdoors. And so it was so wonderful, like working directly with the Leave No Trace Center and really learning that like that's not coming from the Leave No Trace Center at all. That is not how they ever intended the Leave No Trace principles to be used. They're very anti-shaming, and this course is a very shame-free course. It's all about us coming together and just honestly and humbly saying like, hey, like we've all made mistakes in the outdoors. We've all, left more impact than was ideal. I know I've learned a lot and have made mistakes in the last 5 years, and I can even learned more through like working with the Leave No Trace Center to create this course. And so I think a lot of people, I know there's some photographers that have kind of a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to thinking about Leave No Trace. Like maybe someone has used Leave No Trace to like attack them or shame them or tell them that they're wrong, really just shutting them down, making them feel like they can never improve or get better, or feel like they can ever become a future advocate for sustainability because of one mistake that they've made in the past. And so I think like shaming and gatekeeping and using Leave No Trace for policing really just has the absolute opposite of its intended effect. It kind of shuts people down. It keeps people from talking about this. And the fear and the silence is like really what is like the main issue in our industry, I think, right now about leave no trace, in the sense of people are afraid to talk about it because they're afraid that they may have broken one of the 7 principles, when in the sense like they're not rules that you can break. These are, concepts that we can utilize as tools to make decisions in the moment in different scenarios, filtered through our own experience, local knowledge, our culture, our background. And, really like the goal of what the Leave No Trace Center is trying to do, they're an educational nonprofit, really, and their primary focus is keeping access to places for different groups of people who use outdoor spaces. Their goal is not perfection. Their goal is not, and their goal with this course wasn't to create like 12 photographers who can follow Leave No Trace perfectly. It's about creating hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands of photographers who are just have a little bit more awareness of like what our impact is doing to these public lands, and how our access is getting restricted as a community, and how like our goal is just to have everyone have a little bit of awareness, and it'll leave a little bit less impact the next time that they're outside.
I was just going to jump in. Should I read through the 7 principles?
Sure. Pastor Brandon, here we go.
So, so Leave No Trace, the 7 principles, what are they? They're plan ahead and prepare, travel and camp on durable surfaces, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find, minimize campfire impacts, respect wildlife, be considerate of other visitors. And I think what's really cool about this course is like we actually sat down with Ben Lahan, the director of education from the Leave No Trace Center, and like talked to him about how each of these applies uniquely to what we do, photographing elopements with guests out in these public lands. And we kind of like dive deep into what that looks like and kind of ask him questions, and he asks us questions. And like Annie said, these are the set of principles that they have, 7 principles. It's, an easy thing to remember, but really there's just like a bunch of general ethics that we discuss with him, and you realize it totally is not black and white. So I don't know. I thought it was super interesting chatting with Ben throughout this whole thing. We all learned a lot, I think, throughout the process.
Yeah. Can one of you, Maddie mentioned the idea of like, again, I feel like this is a process for all of us in a lot of areas of our life, probably the last like 4 to 5 years in general. But, you said that you had, as you've learned more, you realized ways that you had messed up previously in the past. For a photographer example, like, what does that mean? Like, give an example of how if you're okay, of how one of you messed up or like didn't do what you were supposed to do, or maybe didn't follow the principle as good as you could have.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I talk about in the course of just how important it is to not leave conversations about Leave No Trace until you're actually on a trail with a couple, like how much more helpful it is to infuse it into your whole workflow and your whole marketing and your branding and your whole client experience. And that's something that I learned through making a lot of mistakes, honestly, of not properly and kindly educating my own couples about how important it was to make sure that we're not leaving impact. So I have showed up at an elopement before thinking that, it's common sense that we're not going to throw confetti at the end of a ceremony. But like the family members all brought it. I didn't even know that it was really happening. And, you know, I saw them pull it out of their pockets as a surprise for the couple right at the end of the ceremony. And I was like, oh God, but I'm not going to just interrupt their whole experience and like ruin their moment in that scenario. And so the confetti is just being thrown and I'm taking photos of it just in this terrible situation where I'm having to make that judgment call between like being a good service provider and not ruining my client's wedding day and making them feel bad about something that they probably just didn't know better, and just realizing like, wow, I could have set better expectations here. I could have communicated this better. There's so many places in my workflow where I could have, you know, more kindly educated my clients about this, given them other really fun alternatives of a way to celebrate their ceremony, you know, encouraged them to then communicate that to all their guests, and everything like that. And so, you know, I've learned a lot through really just, and mostly, and you know, ending up in situations that could have been easily prevented with just a earlier conversation by just infusing Leave No Trace into my workflow. One of the most tangible things that's been really helpful is actually having a Leave No Trace clause in my contract, which comes as a part of this course. It was written by Paige Griffith, who is a lawyer based out of Montana. Her brand's called The Legal Page. She donated that contract clause to this course, so it's included for free when you watch the videos and pass the quiz. And you can literally just copy and paste it into any photographer contract that you have, no matter what type of photography you do. If you are taking anyone or using public lands, national parks, state parks, really anything that's not a privately owned space that's owned by a private person is probably public lands. And so if you're using that as a backdrop, like having a contract clause that says, hey, we're all going to abide by these 7 principles and make sure that we don't damage, ruin, destroy these places that we are using as a beautiful backdrop. You know, that kind of sets that expectation in a really tangible, concrete way up front. And then, you know, sending information to your clients throughout your workflow when you're location scouting, you know, sending them a client guide. The course also comes with a 25-page client guide that you can just literally spend 10 minutes putting your own images into in Canva and just send to your couples. Super easy, and it's awesome. You know, there's so many ways to like prevent situations where you're having to make a call between following your values around Leave No Trace and being a good service provider. When you infuse Leave No Trace into your branding and your workflow, it's all aligned. And yeah, I mean, those are probably the biggest mistakes that I've made with Leave No Trace, is just not properly educating and setting expectations and not wanting to create an awkward situation for my couples the day of.
That's something where I didn't even think of like the confetti thing as like an example. Like I was 100%, maybe people listening, like I was 100% expecting you to be like, oh, well, yeah, like we, you know, they had champagne and we couldn't carry the bottle back off of our hike and we just left the bottle there. Like I was only thinking of trash or something like that. But that makes so much sense of like, you know, because again, the trash part or something like that, you're like, oh, well, again, I assume your couples, especially, are like, they love the outdoors. Like they wouldn't want to do anything harm. I think that's why they're getting, you know, married or eloped in that location. But then it's like, oh, like, yeah, the fun uncle came and had his little confetti popper and he bought 20 off of eBay and was like, you know, gave them all out last night at the bonfire with the family, and then you didn't even know.
Well, that's what a lot of it is just not knowing and not being aware. Like they make confetti. I feel like we've all been there with the confetti thing. Like we had a wedding a couple years ago.
They have biodegradable confetti. It's not actually biodegradable, and we learned that the hard way.
In 10 years.
Yeah. You know, with water, one rain, no, it just gets soggy and makes it harder to pick up. Like it does not disappear. And you know, same thing with smoke bombs. I mean, people are like, that doesn't leave anything behind, but now look, I mean, it started a fire, major fire in California just recently, so that can be an issue. Champagne, you know, is maybe not the worst thing for the environment, but it is sweet and unnatural, and it can be something that animals, you know, come and lick and seek out and attracted to, and that can disrupt the natural flow. So
I think what, you know, our collective experience shooting weddings outdoors, you know, between the 4 of us, we have so many different experiences with so many different people and so many different places. And I think what's really cool about this course is we just throw it all into this course. Every single experience we've had and we've learned from to like do better next time, it's like all in this course. So like, yeah, and there's just so much that you couldn't think of unless you like get into that experience and get into that situation.
And in the white label guide, there's actually like direct alternatives for things like confetti and champagne popping photos and sparklers, all that stuff, which is pretty cool.
No, that's super smart, because I feel like that's the, even people that aren't like directly like, oh, I hate the environment, they're going to ask like, well, is there some other way we can do this? Or is there some, what do we do? Or again, like, it's awkward. I feel like it's, my equivalent is like a mom, prior to seeing any photos, hey, can you Photoshop me? I'm like, girl, you haven't even seen it. I want to make you look good. But it's like this awkward tension to where you're kind of like, oh, yeah. You just like run away, and then you don't do it. And hopefully she looks great because you're a good photographer. And, it's not even a question. But it's, again, like these couples who are going to ask that question, like, oh, yeah, we've got confetti. And you kind of have to be that like, like the awkward. And now you can be like, hey, just FYI, whatever. Or, even in those emails, like, again, setting couples up to pay attention to that leave no trace kind of thing in the contract. Be like, hey, guys, don't just look this over. Like, I would invite you to make sure that you're into this or this feels good. And I think, too, also, I always think on, like, the marketing aspect, I know Maddie feels this way, too, is, like, from her background, is similar to, being an ally for, other marginalized groups or something like that. This symbol is going to be valuable to the couples and people who are intentional about caring about the environment or love the environment, right? Again, it's like, what do you care about? Like, what do you most enjoy? Let's, my big word is always like, let's be stewards of this thing, as the best we possibly can. Again, and that's kind of what I had gotten, because like there's, Annie was talking about how like there's so many visitors and all this stuff. And, it's this weird balance. I know I can imagine, I don't know for Gabby and Brandon specifically, but I know Annie and Maddie for sure. We've all been to that one canyon in Iceland and we're like, oh, this is incredible. This is all moss covered, magical. This is great. And then Justin Bieber films a video there and we go, crap. And like, I'm not going to tell Justin Bieber that he shouldn't have chose my favorite country and like, but at the same time, there's like, these principles of stewardship and like, what do we do? And now like certain places like that can't do that. So my next question is kind of like, if there is even a good answer, this is more of what is that balance between the invitation to enjoy this incredible thing that we all have, and at least in the US, we call them national parks or whatever. And then the balance of like, telling people, hey, if you come, we have to do the right thing. What is that balance? Because we want to invite more people to the outdoors, because the more people that come, they'll, in theory, fight and enjoy for those things. So what does that look like?
Well, this is something that I feel like, I don't know, this is like what I feel really passionate about it in the first place, because like if we wanted to perfectly conserve all these places, we shouldn't have ever built roads into the national parks, right? The roads were built in order to create experiences, in order to create like a relationship with the outdoors, so that we can like then in turn like push for conservation. Because the conservation of national parks is like national parks are usually really huge, and there's just a tiny little area that you have like these front country locations where you access, right? And in like, I have like a background in outdoor education. That's what I studied. That was my bachelor's degree in college. So like, we really went in depth into this. Like environmental ethics was the hardest class I ever took. But we went just like really in depth into just kind of discussing and kind of like thinking through the background of all this. So we would always talk about how like these roads and these areas in national parks that we access as photographers that are called front country locations are kind of like a sacrificial lamb, because they are going to have impact. Like the roads built into the national parks themselves is impact. And it's just kind of inevitable, right? But it's there to create these experiences for us. And then, I mean, the whole point of it all is to then create more advocates for those places. And I think that's where it all stops, because we have this now huge culture of like, I don't know if like social media created this. I'm kind of suspicious that this always existed before social media, and social media just exacerbated it. But like everybody just wants that photo. Like, we don't even really care about the experience behind what it was like to get that picture. We just really want that picture. And I feel like that's what I struggle with sometimes too, with couples who come to me with these really, really populated areas. They want like the picture at Glacier Point. And I just try to explain to them that, listen, there's going to be 100 or 200 other people there, screaming kids, like buses, like limited parking. Like, the experience of these places are going to be really different than probably what you're thinking of, but everybody's really attached to the idea of like, I really want this picture. And it's all in these like really, really populated areas in these national parks. So there totally is this like tough balance between, okay, I really want these places to stay accessible. I want them to stay pristine, but there is like infrastructure, there are restrictions to how we can access these really, really popular areas. And I think just understanding that like not all of the outdoors is that way is like kind of the key to all of this. And I feel like that's like one of the biggest principles that I like probably dive into the most, is plan ahead and prepare, because there's just a huge opportunity for you as a photographer to be like, oh, okay, you really want this like really epic, cool photo in Yosemite National Park. But like understanding that the places that you know of that you've seen on Instagram and Pinterest are probably like the most popular areas that have the most restrictions to accessing these areas. And it's going to be like, sure, a photo, but the experience of that photo is not going to be what you think it's going to be. And kind of like pushing and trying to move and like shift the perspective of couples, or their perspective of even like other photographers in the industry as a whole, to focus on the experience. And to realize that if you do enough to plan ahead and prepare and research other locations, like the point of everything is to have like this amazing experience. And I think like learning how to communicate that to your couples is just like really, really crucial and really key. And I don't know if I'm making any sense at all right now, but I'm trying to explain that like, that there's just a really distinct difference between these really popular, almost like sacrificial land locations in these national parks and state parks that everyone knows about. And then there's the whole rest of the environment that I think is like, that is like the real experience that people actually want. And learning how to research that and learning how to communicate that to people, that's where the balance for me comes in, is taking like their idea of these really popular and populated places and then bringing that to life in a place that is more private, less access, less accumulative impact that are happening in these places, potentially like more access as a photographer and as a group of like people having a wedding outside, that you could actually like, you know, maybe have a little bit more like of an area to move around because there's not 100 other people that you're trying to get away from or whatever it is. So I feel like if that made any sense at all, that's how I approach the issue of balance in Leave No Trace with couples and like bringing their dreams to life.
Yeah, I think Adam too, with you saying like Justin Bieber films this music video in Iceland and then all of a sudden a bunch of people know about it and they want to go there. Like as photographers, if we're doing our job well, we're sharing images that make more people want to go there. And these places are meant to be experienced. You know, Leave No Trace isn't about like gatekeeping and like, and we're not all about just hiding our locations and we don't want to be the only ones shooting there. Like one of our favorite things about being elopement photographers is taking couples out to these locations who have never experienced anything like this before, or their families. Like we just shot an elopement last week and it was all of their family's first time in Washington. And we went up into the North Cascades and they were just mind blown by like the glaciers and the mountains up there.
They just kept saying like, I can't believe this is in our country. Like this feels like a different country.
Yeah.
And it's just such a cool experience for us and for them to show people these places that they had no idea existed.
Yeah, and so we're all about more people coming to visit and experience these places. It's just, you know, with this course too, it's just how can we continue to educate and spread awareness so that we're doing it in a sustainable way, because a huge part of, you know, why we're doing this too is so that we can keep access and we can continue working and shooting in these places. Because if we don't kind of get it together and show that we are good stewards of the land, access can be taken away from us. So yeah, we want to be able to do this for years and years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. one of the things I was thinking about when Annie was speaking, and even what Brandon just said, is, there's so many facets to this, right? Like if we weren't photographers, then we would still have these leave no trace principles. And we're like, okay, yeah, like this, we're just, patrons of these national parks and these public lands, et cetera, and then the photography side of things, like Annie was talking about, you almost have to, at least for me, what I've had to do a lot of times is I tell this story all the time, and this is not related to Leave No Trace, but this communication breakdown between us and couples or us and our clients, where, this is probably 10 years ago. I had a bride send me a Pinterest board, of course, right? That doesn't happen anymore, thank God. But she sent me a Pinterest board. But all I had was a handful of photos, and the one photo she had was this really epic photo. It didn't need to be epic, but it was this epic photo of a bride and her dad. And, at some level, and for some odd reason, I decided to, ask more and be curious about it. But, I could have just left it and be like, okay, yeah, epic photo of her and dad. Okay, great. Like, check. And then I asked her about it. I said, hey, what do you like about this photo? Right. And I had not had some of my other communication processes down yet at that time in my business, because I was still new, very, very green. And she just replies, oh, I just want to make sure I get a photo with me and my dad. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Like I was thinking I'd have to bring like 7 flashes, not in my wheelhouse, a fisheye, not in my wheelhouse, like all this stuff. And she's just like, oh, I just want to make sure I get a photo of me and my dad. And I have that same problem, ironically, here in DC. It sounds very similar to what Annie was mentioning, to where like, DC, our national park, the National Mall, right? Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument, and the Capitol, Constitution Gardens, and the War Memorial. So it's like couples are like, half of my couples are like, yeah, we want to do it at the National Mall. And there's this element where I have to kind of gauge what they want to do. There is an element of couples that, yeah, we want to flex on our friends. Like, we're going to look good. We've been working out. We, XYZ, whatever it is, right? Like, we want to have that photo that's like, mic drop, look at us. And I like that, right? All of us like that. That's fun. It is cool. I want to make people feel good. Like, that's how I want to make everybody feel all the time, is like, you can mic drop whenever you want, in your pajamas, whatever. But I wonder, I want to know, what's that communication look like, for Annie's example of like Yosemite National Park or Glacier Point, right? Basically anywhere that's been an Apple background on computers for the last 10 years. Maybe it is like, hey, that is a really pretty location. That's really cool. And at least here in DC, what I usually have to tell people is like, hey, if you don't want any crowds at these most popular places in my city, here's how we do that, or here's that process to minimize that. Or, some couples think they have to do it at that location, right? Like if somebody's like, oh, we're going to go to Glacier National Park, we have to do it at this place. Being the expert and saying, hey, I actually got some other sweet spots for you that are really, really cool. Like being a chef and showing something off the menu and saying like, hey, I know this is what your friends did and it's solid. It's our most popular dish, but let me tell you about this, and like, I'm always curious what that process looked like. And yeah, there's probably going to be some couples that are like, we would still like to flex on our homies. And then you kind of say like, okay, well, like XYZ, here's the process and, whatever, maybe, or you say no, like, wash your hands of it, or you get a chance to show people that like that experience they've never had before. Like we recently did a shoot, and again, I'm not an elopement photographer by any means. Again, most of my stuff is in the city with granite, memorials to dead people in the background. But I took this couple out to these cliffs in Maryland, and it was just a baby 2-mile hike out there. Longer hike than anything we're doing in DC to get to a city. And towards the end, we're all alone on the beach. They're in their swimsuits in the water, and like the sky meets the water and it's the same color, and it was quiet and there was so much peace. And it was like, that was probably my favorite day of the year. And it's like, the photos are just a literally a memory of how this felt. And I think finding that balance, all that to say, is like communicating and like letting couples know, we're going to give you that experience that this Glacier Point photo or this Yosemite photo makes you feel, but you don't have to have that, So I don't know where I was going with that, but I feel you, and who knows like how that works. But I feel like that process is going to be a little bit complicated for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a super good point, Adam. I feel like as elopement photographers, and I know you're really into SEO, Adam, so you know what I'm talking about. Like there's the popular locations are the ones that people are Googling. So they are then therefore the ones that we write blog posts about and then get traffic to our site. And then, those are also the ones that we end up getting inquiries for. They're all the most popular locations. They're Horseshoe Bend, they're Glacier Point, they're that canyon that I can't pronounce in Iceland. Those are the spots that everyone sees a photo on Pinterest. They have the best marketing. Those are the venues, quote unquote, with the best marketing for elopement photographers that then people Google and then find the photographers who have shot there before. So, most of our Colorado inquiries are for Rocky Mountain National Park, even though there are 54 mountains here over 14,000 feet. It's like this one area that everyone knows about because it's a well-marketed, branded national park. And so, I love your kind of off the menu analogy here, because being able to talk to a couple on the phone and say like, hey, like, I know that you inquired about Rocky Mountain National Park. Like, that place is amazing. There's a reason it's a national park. It's an hour from me. It's right in my backyard. I totally know it. But did you also know that there are so many other beautiful areas outside of Rocky Mountain National Park that are going to be way less busy, way less crowded, have a better experience for you? It really is, it isn't just better for Leave No Trace and not, adding to the really intense cumulative impacts that national parks face, being, they're all understaffed, underfunded, and overrun. Every single one of them is. And so when I have the opportunity to take a couple to a less trafficked area, that's going to, one, give them a better experience, two, make them feel like really unique, like they did something cool and different, and, be able to stand in a place that no one else has probably stood or said their vows before. I think that's one of the coolest things about eloping, and just have an experience that is secluded. So a lot of times, if I'm getting an inquiry for a really popular location, there's a couple of options. I mean, one, we can go at like a weekday at sunrise where there's not crowds. Two, I'm always suggesting like alternative locations that give them that same feeling, that same experience that they're imagining without like the behind the scenes chaos of the crowds and the parking and the permits and, like there being a busload of tourists trying to take photos of them behind my shoulder, which is like happened. The thing is like there's always all alternatives. I mean, Yosemite Valley is long. Like that 3,000 foot cliff is not only at Glacier Point. Like there are other points on Yosemite Valley. There's other bends in the Grand Canyon that look like Horseshoe Bend. There are other mossy canyons in Iceland. I photographed elopements at other mossy canyons in Iceland, right? So it's all about kind of looking for alternatives that can provide that, a much better experience for your couples, which is great marketing, great customer service. And, that's one of my personal, like, unique selling points as a photographer, being able to say like, hey, all of the photos you've seen on my Instagram are at locations the couple didn't know existed until they hired us. Like, we will help you find these amazing spots. And, it also, going to less trafficked places and making sure that when those are shared online, that I'm either not tagging a very specific geographic location, I'm tagging a more general area, or I'm, also providing contextual information about how important it is to take care of that space at the same time, making sure that can continue to stay an amazing place.
Yeah. I almost wonder if it's like a little bit of marketing, at least in the sales process. You're usually asking questions of the couple anyway, but like they come to you, they're like, yeah, Rocky Mountain National Park, let's do this. And you just ask like two questions. We're like, hey, like, are you guys really into crowds? And they're like, no, and then be like, do you guys like being the center of attention? And they're like, no, but like, great, I've got some other options for whatever. And if they say yes to those, and you're like, all right, let's roll. And I literally, not related to our Iceland comment, but I literally, even in DC, like, you walk on the Washington Monument or the Washington Lincoln Memorial with a couple in wedding outfits, and like there's 1,500 tourists who are all photographing them for their own gram, for their own clout, for their own like, hey, look at this, I experienced some cool culture while I was in DC. And I tell couples, I'm like, hey, are you ready for Bieber fever? Like, you will be treated like a celebrity if you're here. And at least most of my couples are like, we do not want to be the center of attention at all. Like, we barely hired a photographer, Adam, let alone anybody else to photograph us. So that's tough. I want to ask about the actual course. Like, what does that look like? We've all of you guys are big in education. We've either launched courses or taken them, right? And, what does that practically look like? Is it just videos of people being like, hey, here's what you suck at? Or, what does that look like for everybody?
So the course it consists of like 5 hours of video, and we're doing, so each one of us like sat down with Ben, who's the director of education at the Leave No Trace Center. And Annie kind of interviewed Ben and asked him all kinds of questions about like, what is Leave No Trace? What are the principles? And the ethics that you can incorporate into your business. And then Maddie talked with Ben about what does this actually look like from the business side of things. So all of the marketing and website and Instagram, social media, like all of the tools. She gives you a whole bunch of tools to take into your business side of things. And then we sat down with Ben and we chatted about what does this actually look like day of the elopement with our couples, with their guests. How do we talk to them about Leave No Trace and educate them? And how do we actually take photos, with Leave No Trace in mind? I think, it's funny, like sometimes like photographers can even be the worst offenders. You've got your eye through the viewfinder, and the entire world around you just totally leaves you because you're focused on creating your art.
In it, yeah.
And, you're so in it, and you might not even realize that you've backed up and now you're like trampling the wildflowers behind you, So we talk about like actual techniques that you can take into your photography that just like keep Leave No Trace in mind. And then we actually all go out on a trail. We went to 3 different locations. Annie went to Smith Rock in Oregon. Maddie went to a place just in Colorado. We went to just outside Mount Rainier National Park, and we all are like on trail talking about Leave No Trace and how we incorporate that into our business and the locations that we're actually visiting. So
yeah, we got into some photography tips while we were out there, what we look for ceremony spots, and trying, a little bit of like when we're scouting a trail in person, what are the things we're looking for to determine if this is going to be suitable for a wedding. And I know in Annie's section, she actually did some like live, never before planned out location scouting right there to kind of like show some really cool techniques. I thought that was awesome. And it's just cool to like go from kind of the classroom in a sense, talking to Ben, to out in these environments that we've been talking about the whole course and seeing what that actually looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, the course in a nutshell, you have 5 hours of video content explaining how to infuse Leave No Trace into your whole business. And I feel like there's so much not tangential, but just like additional value that even if you don't feel like Leave No Trace matters that much to you, I feel like the tips about location scouting and taking photos and providing a better customer service and marketing and workflow like is well beyond worth the price of the course, which is $95. And it's a totally nonprofit course. All the proceeds are going directly to the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics. None of us are making any money off of it. And then when you combine that, like once you watch all of the videos, there's a little quiz at the end of the course, which when you pass it, which is basically just testing your awareness and did you watch the videos, then it unlocks 3 additional things which are beyond worth even more value. It comes with that contract clause about Leave No Trace. You can copy and paste and stick right into your contract. It comes with a 25-page client guide that you can send to your couples. That's super awesome and really, really valuable. And it comes with a Leave No Trace aware photographer badge that it's a digital badge that you can put on your website, put on your social media, just, next to your other featured badges or whatever other certifications you have as a photographer, adding to that social proof, making you look more legit and espousing that this is a value of yours, helping, again, book more couples who align with those same kind of values. All of that comes in the course. So it's like the videos, and then it's all this additional value that you unlock once you pass the quiz. So that's basically what the course that we put together with the Leave No Trace Center is in a nutshell.
I love that because it's, the question I was kind of getting at is like, is it just philosophy or does it actually, help at the level of like, because we, in theory, hopefully everybody would all agree, be like, yeah, public lands, like love them, and at the same time, you got to be like, no, but like, will you advocate? Will you care in your everyday actions? Something like that. So I love that. My last question, well, not my last question, but, only because we talked about this pre-recording, but have you all taken the quiz and how many times did it take you to pass it if you were an expert about this?
That's funny because we like did kind of a soft launch of the course to kind of see, what questions we could ask. And, there was like two little stumpers, I think, in there at the beginning that a few people had issues with, but we added a little workbook. We added a little cheat sheet. We have now made the quiz like very easy, but apparently Annie, you didn't enjoy the quiz.
I failed the quiz 5 times. And I kept getting the same two questions wrong every single time. And I would just alternate. I was like, for sure, every single, this is like 100%. But I was like, these 2 questions are really tricky. I'm not good at testing either. So I went through the quiz so many different times, just trying to try out, oh, maybe this is the right answer. And then I would go through and push submit. And I was, damn it. Okay, maybe this is the right one. It was really bad. But I did make it through after 5 times.
Yeah, we have fixed it though. I want everyone to know it's not tricky. It's not a hard test. It's just basically testing. You watch the videos now. We got those 2 that tripped people up.
Yeah,
fixed, so.
It's tricky, but it was tricking me. So if you fail it, it's okay. I just started sweating every time I took the quiz. Like, okay, this time.
Exactly. Like asking photographers to take a quiz. We're like, what? Like, what is happening? Like, are we going to be good at this? But no, I love that. That's cool. I was just picking on Annie. I'm so sorry. But like,
okay.
Basically.
The fun thing too is there's a button and it'll show you what the right answer is. So that's a little lesser known fact.
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure out.
The
only way I passed the quiz, I'm not going to lie.
I love it. There's no reason that no one should pass and get this badge. Also, I just came up with this, but we talked about Boy Scouts a little bit, and then this badge. Well, I feel like now we need to start our like photography collective and have different merit badges for different things that we're like good at or care about or whatever, and be like, bam, like leave no trace, boom.
Asian scouting expert.
Yeah, exactly. Like doing this, and me would be like fighting off, moms that want to be photoshopped merit badge, just whatever needs to happen.
I freaking love digital badges. I think they're great. Yeah. I think they're really fun. Like whether you're published somewhere, whether it's a certification or some organization that you care about and you donate to as a part of your business, I think it's great. Also, having that social proof on your site, it's always a good thing for marketing.
Totally. Yeah. It's one of the...
Yeah, it's a way to like bring the community together a little bit and bring in like other people that are like really a huge part of what you're doing, whether like they marketed for you or you were featured in some way or you collaborated for something. I feel like it's a really cool way to like keep the community connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even just from a marketing standpoint, like we've literally gotten inquiries from people that are like, we reached out to you because we know you guys care about Leave No Trace. Like people have literally said that in their inquiries. So it's just really, it's a really helpful thing to have on your website.
Yeah. It's a weird world when you realize that people, one, will like you for you, but then if you're intentional about something that they're intentional about or that they believe in, like for us, like fat, straight, white, bearded dude, like nothing special. We were very pumped about like Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ and like working towards furthering those causes. And, as a wedding photographer, the homepage image on my site is an engagement session of 2 ladies. So not even a wedding. And we get emails all the time that are like, yeah, we just really love that. Like it sounds, even from, again, straight white couples or whatever who are like, yeah, that's like something we want to push for as well. And, I think that's a millennial thing as well. Like this is totally off topic, but that's a millennial thing is like we are trying to do our best. We may not be perfect at it, but to be intentional with our purchases, our actions, like, et cetera, so I think that's really cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming on, guys. There is one last thing that I have no idea what it means, and I'm just going to do it live. Maddie mentioned something about some giveaways. So we love free stuff as people are listening to a free podcast. So tell me about that, Maddie.
Yeah. So there's 2 really exciting giveaways that we're doing. One, September 26th, which is a Saturday, is National Public Lands Day. And anyone who enrolls in the How to Leave No Trace course You just go to howtoleavenotrace.com and you'll find it. It's $95, totally nonprofit course. All of the money is going to the Leave No Trace Center. You get all of this value. All you have to do is enroll by the end of the day on National Public Lands Day, which, I mean, what better way to celebrate our public lands and learning how to take care of them so we can keep taking photos with these awesome backdrops. So if you enroll in the course by the end of National Public Lands Day, the Leave No Trace Center put together these 2 like massive cool swag bags. You can't see me because this is a podcast, but they even sent me like 2 like really cool Leave No Trace hammocks. They have books, stickers, their bandanas, this sweet water bottle. So they put together like 2 big Leave No Trace swag bags that, so for 2 people who enroll in the course by National Public Lands Day, they're giving away 2 of those, which is awesome. But I think more excitingly, the other giveaway, which is sweet, which the 4 of us kind of all put value into, was anyone who watches the videos and passes the quiz and puts their Leave No Trace Aware photographer badge on their site or their social media by November 15th. So in about 6 to 8 weeks, you have that amount of time to go ahead and watch the course, pass the quiz, listen to it in your car or watch while you're editing in the background or whatever you need to do to kind of up your education as you kind of finish this like fall season. We've put together educational products that all of us made into this like really big super giveaway. So I'm giving away a free copy of my elopement photographer course, which is a $2,400 16-hour course, which is basically how to build an elopement photography business from A to Z, how to get inquiries, how to get bookings, how to really just like become a full-time elopement photographer, really just book a lot more elopements. And then the Foxes included, they have these super sweet, like ready to plug and play email templates with their workflow and basically every single email they send to the couple from start to finish, which is awesome. And those are really, really sweet and tons of like helpful workflow tips. There's even a Leave No Trace email in there, which is cool. Basically, they can send to couples directly. So it pairs really well with the course and with everything else. And then Annie donated both of her preset packs, the Iceland pack, the Yosemite pack. So we put this all together and it's almost $3,000 worth of educational materials to one person who is able to pass the quiz by November 15th. So we're really excited about that. We really want people to get the course, watch it, and for us all as a community to, go from being seen by land managers, from being a group of people who has historically not been the best protectors of the environment, and really just like turn this ship around. Because if we get banned from national parks, like that's all of our businesses at stake. Whether or not you are a vegan or hug trees on the weekends, like honestly, like it doesn't really matter. Like if we get banned from national parks, elopement photography is not a thing anymore. And so we're really just trying to like turn the ship around before it all sinks on us, basically. So we're really hoping that all the value that we put into the course and these and these giveaways, we really want to start just an open, honest, like humble, shame-free conversation around Leave No Trace. Like, hey, none of us have all done this perfectly in the past. We can't change that, but we have the power to change the future that we have as a collection of photographers that wants to be able to photograph outside.
I love it. This is one last thing I was thinking about, but I feel like this course and the badge and the initiative is going to be one of those things that I feel like would separate elopement photographers who are really caring about this and are really intentional about these actions from people who do just want the flex or the gram. And so I think that's something for people who are listening and people who are considering the course, like that's something to consider. Like, yeah, it's $95, which I think is like super valuable, and you get a chance to win all the magic stuff by November. But, like, do you care about this, right? It's cheaper than a business license, cheaper than renewing your registration at the DMV. Like, do you care about this? Do you want your couples to care about this? And like $95 for job security, guys. Like, that's how I'm looking at it. So,
and it's a donation. It's all going to benefit the Leave No Trace Center. So
yeah. And when you stand up for something, you stand out, which I feel like is just kind of basic, like 101 business,
Yeah, totally. I love it. Awesome, guys. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for being on. I would love to, have everybody just email you pictures of their cool hammocks when they win those, or their water bottles, or their badges. So where's the best place for people to go find more about the Leave No Trace course, of course, and then where they can go say hi to you guys?
Yeah. So the course, you can find everything at howtoleavenotrace.com. And that's where you can, find out all the information, all the details of the course, and go ahead and enroll in it and get all of that value for $95 donation to the Leave No Trace Center. Me personally, you can find me and my business on Instagram, Adventure Instead or Adventure Instead Academy, adventureset.com/academy. And Foxes, y'all and Anna, y'all have your own sweet sites too. So
yeah, we're just the foxesphotography.com. Definitely lots of images from all our adventures and elopements on there.
Instagram's at the Foxes. And then if you're interested in any of our education, it's just fromthefoxes.com, and bunch of stuff up there on that website.
And mine is just Anni Graham, annigraham.com or Anni Graham Instagram. And I don't have that much education out there right now, but it's coming.
That's all right. Hey, this podcast is there. The course is there. You got some preset packs. So, you're doing this, Annie, from Bali to Bend. Okay, I've been watching.
From Bali to Bend. Those are like my two homes. How did you know that?
I just know. I do my research, Annie. You don't even know, but I know. Man, what a cool episode. I love talking to Maddie Mae, of course, about elopements. I feel like she's, everybody has their person they look up to in a certain field, and she's mine for elopements. But then I can add in Anni Graham and the Foxes into that group now, and I just feel like them combining their forces is like the freaking elopement Avengers. So just absolutely incredible to hear from them, hear about their passion, their story. So if you're an elopement photographer, passionate about public lands, trying to conserve your job, like that's how I look at it. Like, hey, you should care about this and extend your job life. Howtoleavenotrace.com. Go check it out. Take the course. I've taken a look at it. It's really fun. It's awesome. It's not boring or weird or anything like that. It's really, really refreshing to have something that's a mutual playing ground that we all should care about. And again, like when Maddie was talking about how land managers look at photographers, that got me. And that is not how they should look at us. They should see us coming and be like, yeah, they're going to do well for us. They're going to help our lands. They're going to help our jobs. They're going to help our most beautiful places around the world. So would encourage you guys to go check that out. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.